Coming up on Hardwood Heroes, the girls' tournament is officially underway. Cross-conference opponents go head-to-head in sectionals, and we'll take a deep dive into the boys' tournament bracket.
Hardwood Heroes starts right now.
Talked about it for weeks, but it's finally time for the postseason. Welcome back to Hardwood Heroes. I'm your host, Shane Scalfaro. The lights keep getting brighter. Hope you brought your sunglasses with you. We're going to start like we did last week, bracket breakdown with Tim Hanna.
Hopefully you guys took notes last week because I've got a whole nother tournament to go over this week. Alexander Circleville, Athens Logan Elm, and River Valley Waverly were all in action yesterday in the sectional semifinals. Be sure to stick around for breakdowns of those games later in the show. As for the rest of the boys tournament, we start in Division II, Region 7. On Tuesday, 8th-seeded Megs will play 9th-seeded Fairfield Union. That same night, 10th-seeded Vinton County will take on Jackson. On to Division III, Region 11. All three of these games will take place Monday. 15th-seeded Nelsonville York Buckeyes will host 18th-seeded Peebles. Next up, 10th-seeded Belpre hosts 23-seeded Crooksville Ceramics. And wrapping up D3, 27th-seed Wellston will travel to face 6th-seeded Chesapeake. Last but not least, we finish with Division IV, Region 15. The 18th-seeded Eastern Eagles will travel to play 15th-seeded White Oak. 3-seeded Federal Hocking Lancers will host the winner of 14th-seeded Glenwood and 19th-seeded Green. Next up, 5th-seeded Trimble Tomcats will take on the 12th-seeded Miller Falcons. And last but certainly not least, 6th-seeded Waterford will host 11th-seeded Southern.
Let's kick off tournament play with the Eastern Eagles. For that, we have Eagles reporter Kylie Osco.
It truly was rockin' in Reedsville. The girls faced the Sodaville East Tartans in their first round matchup. It was the last home game for the Lady Eagles, and the student section was pumped. Eastern's defense started fast and was stout all night as they generated turnovers and forced jump balls. These turnovers translated into fast break opportunities, and this is where the Eagles start to spread their wings and fly. The Eagle who flew the highest was senior guard Hope Reed. Reed was hot out of the gates, and it seemed like she could not miss from behind the arc as she cashed out the night with 7 threes. The leading scorer of the night capped her last game in the Nats with a whopping 31 points. Beyond Reed, 7 of the 8 players who touched the court ended the night with points.
Yeah, it's great to see them come together, but what was their secret?
Honestly, Eastern stepped onto the hardwood radiating with confidence. This is a young team, and they've grown a ton throughout the season. The best example of this is Mackenzie Robertson. She finished the game as the team's second leading scorer, adding 11 points to the board. Eastern finished the night winning by a score of 61-24 over the Tartans. The Eagles' next challenge is the Waterford Wildcats, and this is no easy task, as the Wildcats are the 1 seed in Division IV, Region 15.
So let's move over to the boys. They certainly had an interesting game.
Yeah, coming into this one, both of these teams at their bottom of the conferences with a total of 4 wins combined. Before the game, Coach Kite put a huge emphasis on pressure, rebounds, and transition play, and that's exactly what the Eagles did.
So how did Eastern have the Spartans' offense stumped?
The Eagles followed Coach Kite's game plan as they pressured the ball all night long. Alexander had a hard time seeing past half court as Eastern's defense was able to generate an abundance of turnovers. Eastern guard Tyler Hill was able to benefit from the Eagles' defense as he got out in transition and led in scoring with 17 points.
Kylie, the Eagles have averaged 48 points a game. How were they able to score 62 on Tuesday night?
The Eagles predominantly scored under the basket. A prime example of this was Ethan Edwards as he had his way with the opposing defense. He was able to drive to the basket and use his elite athletic ability to finish at the rim. Edwards and Hill led Eastern to their 4th win of the season with a score of 62-37. The energy display this week was a sight to behold, and both teams are hoping to carry this energy into postseason.
Yeah, I'm interested to see if they can do it. Thanks for the great work, Kylie. Let's turn it over to Waterford, where the boys have a massive out-of-conference game. For this rivalry, we welcome Wildcats reporter Jake Collins.
Waterford traveled across the Muskingum River to hopefully spoil Fort Fry's senior night. Coach DJ Cunningham said he always expects this rivalry game to be intense, and that's what happened in this matchup. Waterford established a strong start in the opening half as Jared Armstrong scored 17 points. Meanwhile, his fellow guard Alec Johnson, he made a pair of threes himself to help put the Wildcats ahead early, building a comfortable lead going into the locker room up 28-20.
We've seen Waterford and second halves aren't exactly best friends. Did they make up in this one?
Honestly, the Wildcats offense faltered with multiple scoring droughts. The Cadets' adjustments at halftime paid off on defense as Waterford only made 6 shots in the second half. But for Fort Fry, they assembled 22 points in the third as Braden Morgenstern scored 10, which replaced a near 10-point deficit with a 4-point lead going into the fourth, and Cadets faithful was loving this momentum swing. Intimidated by the pressure, the Wildcats fluttered with only 6 points in the fourth quarter, and their trouble only increased Fort Fry's lead to an eventual double-digit win.
So over on the girls' side, they had to wait a couple of days for their tournament game.
And they get to do it against a familiar opponent, that being the Eastern Eagles. Of course, the teams met twice already in TVC play, with Waterford taking both games, but Eastern looked to play upset in this tournament battle. The Wildcats put the pressure on the Eagles early with endless double teams to open this one. Forced turnovers turned into easy fast break layups, and Waterford started the game on a 16-0 run within minutes. Even with the large lead, the Wildcats showed no signs of stopping the double team press, and this only helped Waterford form a 25-5 lead after the first quarter.
Wow, they came out fast. How that changed the course of the game?
Well, the starters were quickly pulled after a hot start in the second, and it was time to rotate some bench players, and they performed very well. With 26 bench points as Ali Franchino cashed in 3 3-pointers, and Waterford totaled 13 different scores en route to a 60-20 victory to claim the sectional title. With the win, Waterford will play either Glenwood or Trimble, but it sounds like we already have that answer, Shane.
We'll find out shortly. Thanks, Jake. So Jake just alluded to it, and just for you, we're getting right into this Trimble versus Glenwood game. Tomcats reporter Megan Kaczynski was at that game and is here to tell us who came out on top.
Shane, it was poppin' and palm around Thursday night, but not for the reasons you might think. In this showdown, both the Trimble Tomcats and the Glenwood Tigers were vying for a sectional crown. And let's go. Mackenzie Ing sends this pass toward Rylan Fouts, and Fouts nails this beautiful shot from 3-point land. Next up, Brooklyn Boyer goes toe-to-toe with her, and this 3 is signed, sealed, and delivered. We head into the second quarter, and this time, it's Abby Weber looking to make some noise. Weber snags the ball from the Tigers and executes this finish. Talk about some easy buckets, Shane. But we're not done yet. Mackenzie Ing looks for her teammate, and there's Bailey Tomlin, who throws up this 3 and splash. And after all that, it was lights out for the Tigers. The Tomcats took home the win and the title with a final score of 44-34. Coach Joe Richards spoke about how far the girls have come this season.
I'm very proud of them to where we were at 2 months ago to now. Like I said, we've improved tremendously, and like I said, we'll see what happens now. The team we're going to play is 1-0 too. It doesn't matter what happened in the regular season. Now let's go get whoever we play next.
After their stellar performance on Thursday, these girls are gearing up for a total cat fight against Waterford next week.
Yeah, so the girls have Waterford next week, but the boys had Federal Hawking this week. Lancers reporter Josh Herner joins us to help tackle this Hawking matchup.
Thanks, Shane. I was in awe all night on Friday.
Yeah, it was a big rivalry game, but it was also senior night for the Lancers. Andrew Earhart came out of the gate with his foot on the gas, making it difficult for the Tomcats to find success.
Earhart was in the fast lane all night with 4 threes in just the first quarter alone.
So how did the Tomcats try to slow Earhart down?
Honestly, Trimble did a decent job of guarding Earhart, forcing some turnovers with their pressure, but these were far and few between. We all know Earhart loves letting it fly from anywhere, and Friday, he was practically unguardable.
Yeah, he might have hit a shot from the parking lot if they let him. On the other hand, freshman Brady Jasek hit 3 threes, including 2 in the third quarter, to keep Trimble afloat. I don't want to sound like a broken record here, Shane, but the turnovers did the Tomcats in yet again.
The Lancers forced 16 turnovers in the first half. That, combined with the slashing ability of Tara Cottrell, was too much for Trimble. Cottrell and Earhart combined for a whopping 71 points out of their 83 total. Earhart surpassed the single-game scoring record, scoring his 46th point at the end of the fourth. Earhart and his Army clinched their share of the Hawking title with the 83-52 win, and it's safe to say they were ecstatic.
Because I'm pretty close with the guy who holds the record. Well, not really him, but his whole family. And I knew I was getting close. I didn't know the exact, but they started talking about it on the sideline, and I just started smiling.
Oh, it means a lot to us. I mean, I'm extremely proud of the seniors and stuff, what they got to accomplish, especially winning 3 of them in a row. Not too many groups can say that that's come through this school.
This is great, three-peat. It's been a long time since the three-peats happened, and that's something that we want to do since the beginning of the year.
But we won, Coach! Woo!
This group of seniors will be remembered in Stewart forever.
And while this game didn't quite turn out the way the Tomcats wanted, it was definitely a memorable night in Stewart.
Yeah, Friday night will go down in Fed Hawks record books for sure. Thanks for the great work, Meg. But Josh, stick around. Still need you for one more game. But first, we have to get into some Hawking standings. We just saw the Lancers take down the Tomcats. But Tim, I want to know, did it shake anything up?
Shane, it's time for the first of our final standings updates of the season. It was a really fun ride this year, but let's jump into it. Fedhawk and Belpre both got wins this week in their final conference games, so they're going to share the TVC Hawking title this year. The two teams are split the season series, with Belpre taking game 1 on December 15th, and Federal Hawking would get their revenge on January 26th. The Trimble Tomcats weren't able to hang in that race coming down the stretch. They will finish in a tie for 3rd with the Waterford Wildcats. Rounding out the rest of the conference, Southern finishes in 5th and Eastern in 6th.
So you might be wondering, where'd the Lady Lancers go?
Don't you worry, folks. The Lady Lancers already punched their ticket to the big dance.
Josh and I are joined by Buckeyes reporter Ashley Fry to take us through this cross-conference battle.
Thanks, Shane. And Josh, I think we've seen this sectional final matchup before.
This isn't deja vu. These two teams have tangoed before, so let's take a trip down memory lane.
The first rendition of this game featured the Lancers taking down the Buckeyes 73-51.
This game just began the season for both teams. The Lancers' physical defense and stifling offense paved the way to an easy victory.
Now that both these teams' regular season stories have come to a close, this game entails a do-or-die scenario for both these teams as they are playing for their tournament lives.
So we know how this game ended last time, but how did it start this time around?
The first few minutes of play had NY written all over it until the Lancers completely flipped the script and ended the first quarter with a score of 21-6.
An 18-0 run immediately sparked the Lancers after the Buckeyes' hot start. This run was largely in part to second chance points on the offensive end and steals on the defensive end, leading to easy transition points.
And speaking of easy points, that would not be the story for NY as the Buckeyes struggled to put the ball in the basket all night long.
There are two integral parts of these teams in NY's Era Levy and Fedhawk's Brentley Cottrell. How do they match up in this one?
Yeah, we anticipated that these two had a major matchup ahead of them, but it was a quiet night for Cottrell and Levy. Cottrell dropped a mere 12 points, and Levy matched her play with 11.
The Lancers moved the ball well all night long, racking up 15 assists, with 5 players scoring 8 or more points. The Lancers outplayed the Buckeyes, winning with a final score of 63-42. Head coach Amos Cottrell spoke on his squad's historic win after cutting down the nets.
Huge. I think this may be our first ever Division III win at a sectional tournament. So just really, really proud of the girls. This was our main goal overall.
The Lady Lancers will be taking on 4-seeded Adena in the next round of the tournament.
Yeah, thanks for the great work, Josh. But Ashley, we still have some work to do. Let's keep rolling with the boys. How'd their week go?
Yeah, the boys had a short drive to Athens as they took on a big conference rivalry game. You would have thought we watched two different games with the way these halves went. Both teams had a slow start with NY only up 17-15 heading into the locker room.
So what was the difference in that second half that gave NY the edge?
2 words: team basketball. This game showcased exactly where the Buckeyes shine, and that's unselfish play and clean defense. Keegan Swope had 10 rebounds, Andrew Connor had 4 blocks, and Alec Thompson had 10 points, while the team had a total of 9 steals and forced 3 turnovers. In the third quarter, the Buckeyes outscored the Bulldogs 18-7 with a score of 35-22 NY heading into the fourth. The Buckeyes would continue this lead and Athens just would not be able to recover. This game ended with a final score of 44-28 Nelsonville York.
So how does this win set them up for success in the postseason?
Not just this win, Shane, but the last 3 games for the Buckeyes have been won by at least 15 points, and this is huge for momentum heading into tournament play. The Buckeyes' first round of the tournament starts on Monday when they take on Peebles, and I'm excited to see how this one shakes out.
Yeah, I am too. Very happy we don't have to wait too long. Thanks, Ashley. So the Bulldogs fell to the Buckeyes, but they had their sights set on their first tournament game. Let's see how they did. I'll hand it over to Athens reporter Camden Walsh for this one.
Thanks, Shane. After a challenging stretch of games, the Bulldogs made their way north, looking to advance in the tournament. In the first round, the Bulldogs would take on Loganell, but the Braves would come out of the gate with a ferocious energy that Athens just couldn't keep up with.
The Bulldogs went against a tall team. How'd that play into this one?
The Braves dominated the glass as Loganell would have the height advantage over the Bulldogs. They came out of the gate grabbing most of the contested rebounds in the first. Luke and Zach Mullins tried their hardest to slow efforts as they'd notch a combined 21 points and 11 rebounds over the course of the game. Despite their best efforts, the Bulldogs would still drop this one 57-28.
So with their season over, give us a sneak peek to next season.
Next year, Athens will be without seniors Sam Trainer and Luke Mullins and will be looking for younger players to step up. Zach Mullins, Leo Martin, and Weston Wheatley will likely remain in the starting lineup, and with some improvement from the young Bulldogs, next year could be looking up for Athens.
So the boys fell in their postseason game, but the Lady has theirs too.
The Lady Bulldogs were ready to rumble in postseason play, and they were led by what some might call a three-headed monster. Asa Holcomb was the Bulldogs' main facilitator, notching 4.5 assists over the course of the regular season. Many of these assists would find Quinn Banks. Her average of 11 points proving vital to the TVC Ohio champions this year. Ella Chapman showed that she had a nose for the ball, snagging 5 rebounds to keep the Bulldogs in control. These three led Athens to a largely successful season, averaging 39 of the Bulldogs' 57 points, keeping the team on top of the conference. The Athens girls traveled down to Jackson to face the Waverly Tigers in the first round of the tournament. As the lights got brighter for the Bulldogs, the stars turned up with them. 4 of Athens' 5 starters would hit from downtown in the last 3 minutes of the first quarter, and the other picked up a block in that time. This momentum carried over to the second quarter, where the Bulldogs would extend their lead out to 38-20 at halftime, with Asa Holcomb putting down 15 points by the break. Their scoring slowed in the next frame, Waverly's Karis Risner doing all she could to bring the game a bit closer on her way to a 26-point night. The early start for Athens would prove to be the deciding factor to give them another game to play on their promising season. Despite a valiant second-half effort, the Tigers would still fall to the Bulldogs, 62-52. Athens is set to play Circleville next. It'll be interesting to see if they get revenge for the regular season loss to the Tigers.
Yeah, we'll see how the girls do next week. Thanks for the great work, Camden. It was the same story for Alexander. Both teams playing their first round of the tournament. Let's start on the girls' side with Spartans reporter Jillian Sanders.
The Alexander girls faced off against Huntington over in Waverly for the sectional semifinals, Shane. The Lady Spartans have not won a playoff game since 2021 and had hopes to change that on Saturday night. Both teams came to play and the atmosphere in Waverly was roaring. Off the jump, Alexander's Kaden Bean played lights out. Bean was shooting 100% in the first quarter for the Spartans. In the second is when both defenses came alive. Alexander's McKenna Moore was blocking any ball she could. Both teams headed into the half tied at 23. The second half was all Kaylee Hutnell. You have to love her. She said, "I'll take that," and had 2 back-to-back scoop and scores. Huntington was keeping the game close, but when Allie Baker fouled out with 2 minutes left, it was the Spartans who took over. Hutnell headed to the line in hopes to seal the deal. It was a battle between the Spartans and the Huntsmen, but when it came down to the final minutes, Alexander conquered Huntington by winning against Huntington 55-48, and finally advanced into the playoffs after ending last season with a record of 1-21.
So the girls took care of business, but how did the boys do?
The Spartans traveled to Circleville to play the Tigers in the sectional semifinals. Unfortunately, the boys fell to the Tigers, ending their season in the process. Honestly, it was a rough game for the Spartans. They came out scoring right away with a layup from Claxton Hawk, but after that, the Tigers went on a 17-0 run and didn't look back. Circleville dominated the first and headed into the half up 36-18. Alexander needed some players to step up. Nate Graves tried to help the Spartans find a rhythm, but ultimately Alexander collapsed. The Spartans fell to the Tigers 75-35.
So what were some of the things that hurt Alexander?
Circleville's Briley Kramer was the main weakness for the Spartans. Kramer dropped 37 points on Alexander. Not only was he the only threat offensively, but Kramer also had 5 rebounds and 2 steals for the Tigers' defense. He was not the only challenge for Alexander, however. The Spartans had 28 total turnovers and only 3 steals. They just could not find a groove against Circleville.
So was there anything for Alexander to hang their hats on?
Mason Morris was the glue that kept the Spartans together. With what little Alexander was working with, Morris dropped 15 points and had 2 rebounds for the Spartans. Although the boys' season had ended, the Lady Spartans traveled back to Waverly on Saturday to play Portsmouth West at 2:30.
Yeah, and they've got a tough one on their hands, but they seem to play pretty well at Waverly. Thanks, Jillian. Looking for some more TVC basketball? Head over to Facebook and Twitter for game recaps and weekly updated conference standings. Instagram has you covered for highlights and action shots throughout the week, and for video or for written content from every game, woub.org/heroes is the spot to go. Let's sail over to Megs. Both teams have hit little rough patches, but are gearing up for tournaments. Starting on the girls' side, we have Megs reporter Reagan Neal to fill us in.
Well, Shane, the Lady Marauders are looking to break a losing streak and come out with a first-round win. And their opponent, the Ironton Fighting Tigers of the OVC. The 25th seeded Tigers came into the game with a record of 5-17, while Megs sits at 24th after 7-16 season. The Marauders wasted no time, moving the ball well and finding shooters. Plays like these from Maggie Musser and Keegan Wolf put Meigs ahead early.
So did the girls keep the same pace on defense?
They did more than that. Delana Wright had 6 steals on the night and was a force to be reckoned with. Meigs utilized a half-court press to disrupt the flow of junior Emerson White. She had 15 of the 19 points at half and ended with a total of 26. Ironton just wasn't able to create their offense while Meigs kept the lead. The Marauders broke their 6-game losing streak with a 59-38 victory.
So the girls moved on in the second round. Where'd that take them?
This win gave way to a trip for the ladies on Saturday, taking on the #1 seed Trojans. Meigs had their hands full this game. Portsmouth came out on a full-court press with the Marauders struggled against Alexander weeks ago. The Lady Trojans were also much taller than the Marauders. This and a lack of organization on offense left Meigs silent. Portsmouth dominated on the floor and took a powerful 57-13 win, bringing the Marauders season to an end.
So we're going to see a boys matchup a little later, but what about their other in-conference battle?
After an intense matchup at Vinton County, the boys hosted the River Valley Raiders on Friday. It was senior night in Pomeroy, and those 4 players mean a lot to this team, especially in their circumstances. Braylon Harrison, Braden Stanley, and Griffin Cleland were all plagued with injuries at various points throughout the season, and they were able to start together one last time. Conley Burnham, also starting, was recognized for his contributions to the team as well. He has been a constant for the Marauders, being the only healthy senior. The Marauders started off the game with pressure, trapping River Valley in a full-court press. The Raiders fell behind quickly, unable to score.
So they had strong defense, but what made their offense so powerful?
Meigs was shooting lights out on Friday. Dustin Vance was a powerhouse in the paint with 24 points, shooting 79% from the field. The Marauders dominated and took the crown 79-43, and Coach Hill earned his 100th win at Meigs to end the regular season. The boys will host Fairfield Union at home on Tuesday for the first round of tournament play.
Should make for a great sectional round. Thanks for the great work, Reagan. On a different boat, the Vinton County Vikings may have had their biggest week in recent memory. There to see it all was Vikings reporter Noah Cavan.
Thanks, Shane. The Vinton County Lady Vikings picked up a big win on Monday against the Washington Courthouse Blue Lions. This game was the definition of back and forth. Blue Lions opened up the game on an 11-3 run, and the Vikings closed out the first quarter on an 11-4 run of their own. By halftime, the game was still neck and neck as the Blue Lions led by a score of 31-30.
Thrilling first half, but what was the second one like?
Well, VC came out of the locker room with something to prove, outscoring the Blue Lions 17-8 in the third quarter. I mean, it looked as if a switch had been flipped. Senior Lakin Williams just could not miss. She finished off the night with a career-high 23 points and also snagged 6 rebounds in the process. Despite a late rally, the big third period propelled VC to a 59-54 victory.
So did they carry this momentum into their second tournament game?
Well, unfortunately not. The Vikings dropped their sectional final game to Circleville on Thursday. The Vikings started out keeping it close, trailing 11-8 just over 2 minutes into the second quarter, and at the half, the Tigers led 18-12. However, the second half was a much different story. The incredible play of Faith Yancey and Gabby McConnell led Circleville to a 47-28 win.
So tough way for the girls' season to end, but how did this week pan out for the boys?
Well, the boys had the biggest game of their season so far this week, and they had a shot at making history. Vinton County set sail for Pomeroy on Tuesday. The Vikings came into this matchup with a 10-0 conference record. Now, all that stood in the way of VC clinching the coveted TVC Ohio title were the Meigs Marauders. The last time these squads faced off, it was the Vikings that came away with a 70-60 win. In spite of this, the Marauders were not going down without a fight. Meigs started out on a roll. Dustin Vance controlled the paint, and freshman Owen Tracy drilled a long ball in the Marauders' 14-2 run to open up the ballgame. The Vikings would not allow this run to carry on for much longer, though. Coach NJ Kite implemented a full-court trap defense that worked immediately, as VC forced several turnovers in the period. The Vikings' offense began to click in the second quarter, too. Garrett Brown put the defender in a spin cycle here, kick-starting the comeback. Owen Heyer's smart plays under the basket also helped narrow the gap for VC. Here, Cobra Sharp intercepts the pass, takes it the length of the floor, and sends a defender flying with the Euro step on his way for an easy 2. The Vikings went into the half trailing 18-17. VC came out of the locker room on fire. Mr. Downtown Garrett Brown knocked in 2 3-pointers in the third period as the Vikings took control with a 29-22 lead by the end of the quarter. The Vikings, in large part to point guard Cobra Sharp, pulled away in the final quarter, winning by a score of 47-37. Coach Kite was happy with the win, but now his sights are set on the tournament.
It's pretty good. I don't know if it's fully sunk in yet. You know, I feel like I've been in a fist fight after that game, but yeah, right now, you know, it feels pretty good. We'll enjoy this, and then, you know, on to the next one. So.
VC became just the third team in 54 years to go undefeated in the Ohio in both football and basketball, and they'll look to keep it rolling against Jackson on Tuesday.
Yeah, we'll see if they can keep making history. Thanks, Noah. The Vikings win the Ohio, and that brings us to our last standings breakdown of the season. Tim, bring us home.
Shane, we had a lot of build up to this one, but the end is finally here. The Vinton County Vikings take the title after beating Meigs earlier this week. And shout out to the football players on the VC squad. They took both the football and basketball titles this year, some true two-sport athletes. Meigs claimed second after an impressive season despite their health issues throughout the regular season. Nelsonville York finishes in third, and we got a three-way tie for fourth: River Valley, Wellston, and Athens. Finally, the Spartans finish in seventh.
We've talked about a fraction of the girls' tournament games, so Tim and I are going to put our smocks on and paint the full picture.
All right, man, let's Bob Ross this thing. We start in Division II, Region 7. Athens takes care of business in the sectional finals. They'll face second-seeded Circleville in the district semis. On the other end of the bracket, Sheridan and Jackson both get wins in the sectional finals over Fairfield Union and Hillsborough, respectively. Both of these games are scheduled for Saturday at Southeastern High School.
Moving into Division III, Meigs falls at the hands of top dog Portsmouth, and 13th-seeded Belpre falters against 12th-seeded South Webster. 8th-seeded River Valley topples 17th-seeded Chesapeake. They take on 5th-seeded North Adams. Alexander moves on to play 3-seeded Portsmouth West, and Federal Hawking takes down Nelsonville York and faces 4-seeded Adena.
In Division 4 Southeast 1, Waterford topped Eastern in the sectional finals, and now they've got a date with the Trimble Tomcats. The TVC Hawking bout turned district semifinals game is scheduled for Thursday. In the Southeast 2, Southern advances with a 7-point win over Lucasville Valley. The Tornadoes will now play Portsmouth Notre Dame on Saturday in Wellston.
It's everyone's favorite time of the show, Heroes of the Week.
The stars of the TVC have shined bright, and I think we found ourselves a couple of stars of the future.
Girls are going first this time. Tim, kick us off.
I'd be glad to. Our hero this week had a superwoman-type performance in the sectional finals. This week's winner, Eastern senior Hope Reed. As the lone senior for the Eagles squad, they've relied heavily on her leadership throughout the year, and especially in this tournament.
She's helped this team soar to where they want to go, and she was the pinnacle point of both the offensive and defensive side.
In a do-or-die game, Reed showed out, 31 points, including an impressive 7 of 9 from downtown. I'm telling you, something must be in the water around here, because it's now 2 weeks in a row that one of our heroes has been fire from the Beyond the Arc. Congratulations, Hope.
Not only was Reed dangerous from Beyond the Arc, so was our boys hero of the week.
And it's not the first time he's been on our radar this year.
He keeps lighting up, so we've got to give it to him again. It's Lancers Andrew Earhart. Earhart hasn't slowed down since we last saw him here. He's lights out from Beyond the Arc and can splash buckets from literally anywhere.
This man keeps showing out week after week, and especially when the lights are shining the brightest. Keep your eye on him when we come for award season.
And what a stat line. 46 points, 58.3% from the field, 56.3% from deep. I mean, there is just no stopping this man. Don't forget about defense, though. Add on his 5 steals. And with those 46 points, Earhart broke Fed Hawk's single game scoring record. May not be the only one he breaks this season if he keeps this pace. Congratulations, Andrew.
Shane, as we come down the final stretch of the season, we're going to have some really tough choices when it comes for our postseason awards.
Yeah, we are for sure. I mean, I don't know how you choose just one of these stars above the rest.
That's all the ball we've got for this week. Be sure to check out our Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for your weekly TVC updates. And with the postseason ramping up, be sure to check out the Full Court Press for exclusive previews.
Thank you for watching. And as always, we're reminding you to be heroic.